Hey friends. Take a sip of water because you always need more water in your life. I'm so glad you guys are here. Let's actually just dive into the topic. Today's topic is about how to learn from a loss or failure. And I wanted to do this topic because last night, most of us across the world, we watched the Super Bowl. And even though we're all like, okay, this team won, they're probably on a high right now, we sometimes forget about the team that lost. And that team that lost, they worked so hard to get this close to a championship and didn't end up getting it. So talk about a heartbreak. Talk about something that gut-wrenching. It sucks to hear that a team had to lose that close, and it's so hard on that team. So I think all of us in some way, shape, or form have lost, a nail-biter game that meant so much, or have had some sort of failure that it was so gut-wrenching and hard to overcome. So I wanted to really talk about this topic because we've all suffered a loss, some sort of a loss on the field or some sort of failure that's hard to overcome. And I want to teach you ways, or teach athletes ways that they can start writing down these things that have happened to them and overcoming the things that have happened to them and come out stronger, better in all elements because this thing happened to them. So with that, that's the topic, how to learn from loss or failure. I always like to start with positivity. Last night I had a couple friends over, and one of my friends, Colleen, she actually made baked brie, and if you're a person after my own heart, you know to make cheese. So she made a baked brie and it was amazing, and that's my positivity of the day to start off this live. With that, I'm super glad that you're here, and let's dive into the topic. Okay, so last week we talked about Kobe Bryant. We talked about the impact that he made on every athlete that has ever played any sport. And one of the things that we talked about in last week's live was a phrase that he would say that I absolutely love, that said, whether you succeed or you fail, it's exciting. And we kind of dove into the topic a little bit last week, but I want to dive into it a little bit more because the overcoming failure is definitely something that can align with that quote. So, whether you succeed or you fail, it's exciting. Think about it. Whether you play a game, whether you win, whether you lose, you weren't perfect. There's no way, shape, or form. Actually, the actual idea of being perfect is you're never going to be perfect in any aspect. There's always some element or way that you could have done something better. So whether you win or you lose, or you hit the game-winning home run or not, there's something that you could have either done in that at-bat or done in that game that could have been better. And if you go about every single win as something where I can't learn, there's nothing to learn, I won, then you're not going about sports the right way. Sports are meant to learn from our mistakes and our successes. So when you succeed, it's good to go back and find out what it was that helped you succeed that day. Just like a failure or something where you lost a game, it's not good to just say, oh, I lost, I'm never going to think about that game again. You can't do that yet. And a lot of athletes, when they lose, they take it to heart and they're just oh my gosh, it sucks that I lost. I never want to think about it again. And think about the opportunities lost if that's how you look at failure. So I want to look at failure in a different light today. So I want everybody here to think about a time or try to go with a recent time that you failed or you lost. Maybe it was a game, or maybe it was just something that you were excited about that maybe it just didn't go your way. I want you to really think about what that thing was. I'm thinking of something right now that did not go my way, that I wish could have been better and wasn't. That thing that you're thinking of. I want you to go back to that day of when that thing happened. Do the best that you can to think about the entire day and what led up to that thing. So go about, what did you do to prepare for that day? A lot of people can probably look at that and be well, I didn't really prepare as much as I could have to succeed in that situation. And there's your answer. There's your learning point. A lot of times, if you're not preparing for something, you're not likely going to succeed at it. So a lot of times we can look back at our failure or our loss as something where we didn't prepare the way we should have. And who knows, maybe you put in your best foot forward to try to prepare, but you learned through that loss that maybe you weren't doing the right things to prepare. Maybe you were working on the things that you were already good at instead of the things that you knew you weren't that good at, but hoped that it showed up that day where you were going to play this game. So do not look for hope. Hope is not a strategy to succeed. You need to be able to look at your preparation and what you put into every single element of that win or that loss. So look at that last failure that you just had. Did you prepare enough for it? Did you spend the time thinking about what it took in order to succeed and it didn't happen for you? Like, think about, did you prepare well for it? Because a lot of times that's like the number one thing. Now, if you put in your best foot forward to prepare for it and you still lost, there are other things that could have happened throughout the game. Were you prepared physically? Were you physically fit enough to, when you were at I almost just said overtime. When you were in extra innings, were you like tanked and out of gas and that's why you lost because your energy wasn't high enough by the end? If that's the case, then you should have spent more time preparing physically and doing more conditioning so you'd be ready for that, 8th, 9th, 10th inning that you weren't expecting but were prepared for. The teams that have the most energy by the end of the game are most likely going to be the ones winning the game. So if it comes to the 7th inning or even comes to the 6th inning and you're realizing how tired you are, no matter what position you play on the field, if you're exhausted by the 6th inning, you know that you didn't prepare well enough to be able to be conditioned and still be at a really good state come the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, who knows how many innings you play. So think about that. If you feel like you weren't physically prepared for that game, a lot of times the reason why you didn't succeed was because maybe you just didn't do enough conditioning. So if that's the case, then look at that past moment where, man, I lost a bunch of my energy by the last 2 innings. Okay, maybe you should add 2 or 3, 15-minute conditioning sessions a week so you can actually have the endurance to be able to succeed by the last inning. So that's just like a simple physical thing. Now, what about and I know I always talk about specific pitches because I love hitting so much, but if you lost, let's say you lost a game, and this is so common I think every softball player that's here can probably relate to this story. I can multiple times, but maybe you lost a game with a strikeout. Like it was literally up to your at bat. There were 2 outs, runners in scoring position, and you lost the big old game with your own strikeout. Been there? I want to see some hearts if some people have been there, because I'm telling you what, I have been there and it's not a fun place to be. But the thing is, if you go about that loss where you said, oh my gosh, I lost the game for my team, I was the final out, we were so close to winning, I ruined the game for my team. Welcome to negativity. Welcome to what our brain always reverts to when things aren't going our way. We always want to blame ourselves. Now, just to give you a little bit of light, there were 7 other innings. There were way more outs that you weren't the out for every single inning. Your last at bat did not determine that entire game. If your team would have, scored more runs than them before that at bat, you would have won. So quit putting the blame on yourself. And if you do tend to put the blame on yourself, which everybody does at times, I put the blame on myself sometimes, but if that's you, your job is to go about that at bat, because if it's eating you up inside, let's analyze it. Let's go over every single pitch that happened, okay? So go over the very first pitch. What was it? Was it a rise ball that you looked at? Was it a rise ball out of the zone that you looked at? Okay, ball 1. All right, let's analyze it. That's what we looked at the first pitch. Now let's say she threw you a drop ball the next pitch and you swung and missed at it. Okay. Was that drop ball a strike or was it a ball? Analyze the situation. Was it a ball or strike? Okay, it was a strike. But you completely missed the ball. You were over top of the ball because it dropped out of the zone or away from your barrel. Okay, you just analyzed that pitch. You analyzed why you missed that ball. Okay? Now, if you want to go into further detail, you guys can probably figure out how you can master that drop ball. If that's a strike that you had to hit, you look at that pitch as, okay, I didn't hit it that at bat, and that was actually the same pitch that I struck out on. Boom, you have the answers. You have the answers to make sure that at bat in that situation never, ever, 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 ever happens again. If you go over all the specifics of what happened in that specific situation, you have the answers to make sure that that entire thing never happens again. And here's the fun part, guys. The longer you play the game and the longer you analyze these situations, the better you're going to be at this sport. Do I need to repeat that? The longer you play and the longer you spend time analyzing situations of things that went well, but also things, most importantly, that didn't go well, the better you will become at this game. Okay? I repeated it because it was worth it. So if you go about every single at bat and you say, okay, I struck out, I'm never going to think about that at bat again, the likelihood of that exact same scenario happening and you failing again is very high. Okay? So let's just eliminate that and let's just say, okay, I'm never ever going to let that happen again because this is what happened and I'm going to make sure that that drop ball does not strike me out this next time. And you're going to do everything in your power to prepare for that next at bat. That is probably going to come again, friends. That same scenario, if you play enough games, every scenario keeps happening to you. And this is the game testing you. The game tests you all the time to see if you're ready for a situation. So if you've been through a situation where it's 2 outs and it's up to you to make sure you keep this inning going, or it's up to you to score this runner at third, understand that you might have failed in that one at bat that you like completely struck out on that drop ball before, but you're probably going to have another opportunity with 2 outs, a runner at third. The game is literally up to your at bat to go and make something happen. And you've been there before and you know exactly what not to do, right? And you know exactly what you did to prepare after you failed in that specific opportunity to where you prepped for that next at bat by analyzing what didn't go right in the last at bat. So the next time you see a pitcher that's thrown a drop ball, you feel more confident because you're like, oh, I've been here. I've looked silly before, but guess what? It's not happening again. So if you take that it's not happening again mentality, you will overcome some crazy awesome things in this game. So I'm going to repeat that thing that I said before because it's so worth saying again. The longer you play, the more opportunities you have to take something that's happened to you in the past and reverse it. Because you've learned from your mistakes, you've also learned from your successes, so you can keep doing the things that are going well and eliminate the things that aren't. The longer you play this game and the more you analyze opportunities you've had in this game, the more likely you're going to be successful the next time you see that opportunity. Here's another thing that it kind of ties along with what we just talked about, but your mental game is something that you should be preparing every single day. Now I want you to think about a time when you were super successful. This is one of my favorite things to bring up at camps and when I work with athletes. Maybe it's that exact situation, just reversed. 2 outs, runner at third, your game's tied, and the game's pretty much up to you. Because after this game, you might end up with a tie and nobody likes ties. But it's up to you to score that runner. And maybe you did it. Maybe you had the game-winning hit. Maybe you had the game-winning home run. Think about the scenario that lights your heart on fire, that made you the happiest you've probably ever been in the box. Think about what type of state you were in that situation. Were you nervous? Probably. It was probably a pressure situation. A lot of pressure. If you overcome that pressure, it feels good. So were you nervous in that situation? Were you relaxed in the box? Probably. You were probably relaxed if you made something good happen. We always talk about you always want to be loose, especially in a pressure situation. So were you loose? Most likely. Was your team cheering for you in the dugout like they were crawling up the fence, like super excited, shaking, rattling the fence like with excitement? Maybe. Was your coach saying, "I believe in you" at third base? I believe that they probably would have, because we're not really successful when coaches say, "Oh, you're not going to get a hit," or "You're not going to do it," or like you can just tell in their face that they don't believe in you. But did your coach believe in you? Probably. So go through the scenario where you crushed it and go over what you felt, what you not just felt inside you, but what was happening around you. Okay? Did that pitcher look nervous? You probably didn't look nervous because you succeeded. What did the defense look like? Where were they playing? What pitch did you hit? What pitch was it that you crushed to the wall? Think about the scenarios and be specific. Now, with that situation that set your heart on fire, got you excited, it's our job to be in that state as often as possible. So you just put all of those things that you thought about, that you felt internally, you felt pretty confident in yourself, strong and excited. Now, that stuff, I need you to write this down. I need you to write every single thing that happened in that scenario, that you crushed it and you did amazing. Because if you have that written on paper, you have the keys to the kingdom when things aren't going well for you. So let's go back to the scenario where we failed or we lost. If you don't want that to happen again, it's your job to remind yourself of what winning feels like. It's your job to remind yourself of what a really awesome and amazing moment felt like. Now, if you have that page in your notebook, you better bookmark it, because there are going to be times where things aren't going well for you. It's going to happen all the time, okay? There's going to be times where you're failing a lot, or you just lost a big game, and you need something that's going to help you get out of this rut. That page of when you crushed it, and the whole scenario of the before, during, and after what happened, you now have the keys to the kingdom to make sure that that bad scenario never happens again, and that you're focusing on the good. Because if you focus on the good and what's going to happen for you, it's more likely going to happen, okay? So think about that. Think about what that scenario was, what made it so amazing. Make sure that you, and I know this probably sounds superstitious, but if you had a really healthy breakfast that morning, like maybe you eat that same breakfast again before this next big game. If you did this like fun juju handshake with your teammate before that at bat, you better make sure you do that juju handshake before that your next at bat. Because if you go and do that and you go have this cool handshake and you guys do it and then all of a sudden you hit a bomb, yeah, what went into that bomb was that handshake. So try to think of what are the things that went into all the good, and make sure you keep doing those things, because that's going to help you succeed. Now, we talked about how we can learn from failure, and we actually talked about a way where when we did something amazing, that can help you with failure by referring to the good. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is the Super Bowl. So let's just think about it. We know that the Chiefs won, but the 49ers did it. And it sucks because one of my good friends from college, Raheem Mostert, plays for the 49ers. I think he was the MVP actually in the previous game before that one. So it stinks that they lost, right? It's not fun. But what's so cool about sports is that, yes, it hurt so bad for them to lose. They were this close to winning a championship, and they didn't get there. We all have a moment in our life that something like that has happened to us, but the thing is, the real athletes, the real competitors, are going to analyze every single thing that happened in that game to where they're looking at what they did wrong so that they can learn from it and make sure when they're in the next championship, those things don't happen again, and they're more prepared for the win. Now, it's not automatic. Like, that doesn't mean the 49ers are going to end up in the Super Bowl next year. Like, a lot of things added up to them getting to the Super Bowl this year. They have to, from this loss, look at the things that went absolutely spectacular this past season, okay? They have to look at all the things that went amazing and the things that helped them get to that Super Bowl. You have to analyze the good, okay? You have to find it sometimes. Like right now, they probably think nothing good happened this season, but wait, they didn't get to the Super Bowl by accident. But if they go over the things that made that Super Bowl happen, they can like work to repeat those things next year. But also they have to look at this season and look at, okay, what are the little things? What are the little things that they could have done better? Because they lost by this much, guys. They analyze what little things that they could have done better that year. They maybe could have won by this much if they would have perfected the little things in some aspect or some way. You know, maybe it was preparation, watching film. Maybe there were a couple players on the team that didn't prep the way they should have before that game. And because of that, they dropped a couple passes yesterday. I don't know. I'm making these things up. But think about it. If some guy's running towards the line when they're doing shuttle runs and he stops this early before he gets to the line every single time, that's a little thing that can amount to a loss. Because if you have that type of mindset, you're more likely going to lose. So what are the little things that went into that loss that you can learn from? This is huge. Because the next time that you're presented with that thing, you're more likely going to succeed because you've analyzed it. Now, what's also kind of neat about a loss, which it sounds weird that I'm talking about the good things that can come from a loss, but guess who is going to come out for vengeance next year? Guess who, like, and it's not like guaranteed. Like I said, they're not just going to show up at the Super Bowl next year. They got to work hard for that Super Bowl. But if the 49ers decide that they're never going to feel this awful again, if they're going through the scenario, what do they feel like right now? I guarantee you none of them are, like, really focusing on, well, maybe they are. I think the best would be. But some of them are probably just trying to forget about yesterday, but the best are going to go and analyze how yesterday went and how they can be better for the next season, and how they can almost look at that failure as a chance to, okay, this really sucks. These are all the bad things I'm feeling right now. I'm going to make sure next year at this time, I am not feeling this way at all. Next year, I'm going to be standing on top of that podium with a dang trophy and winning a Super Bowl. They now have the fuel, which is another key to the kingdom. That loss, they now have the fuel because they do not want to feel this awful again. So think about it. How bad do you feel when you lose? It's awful. It sucks. But think about it. If you use it as fuel to make sure you never feel like that again, you now have the fire under your butt to go work harder. You can learn so much through failure. It's crazy. I could probably talk about this for like 2 hours. Let's talk about this too. Obviously, failure is not fun. Losing is not fun. What's going to help you recover from the loss is also not very fun. But once you overcome this loss, you are going to have the absolute time of your life because you put so much work into a win from the loss. So through every loss, there's a win somewhere in there. There is a win that can happen because you've looked at this failure and you've analyzed it and you've become a better person because of it. They say the most successful people are the ones who have failed the hardest. So think about this. Are you putting yourself in situations where you're failing and where you're learning? Think about this. If you're showing up to every single practice and it's easy and like things are so easy and you're not even being challenged at all, there's like no point of even having a practice because you weren't around failure if you're always having it easy at practice. Or it's super easy, like when you're playing teams that aren't even that good, but you're beating them by 1 million points. You're not learning anything there. So are you exposing yourself to enough failure? So failure is the key to succeeding. You have to be able to fail. You have to be under pressure. You have to lose in order to know how good it feels to win. So if you find yourself failing or losing at times where you're just like, I am sick of this, I'm done with this, there's no more that I want of this feeling, maybe you should be exposing yourself to practices where you're failing more often and you're making practices harder so that come game time, the games seem a little bit easier because of how hard you worked in practice or how hard you worked in a workout. So expose yourself to environments that are challenging and where you are failing. Do that in practice so the games become easier for you. So failing is the key to success. So take that big failure, take that big loss, the one that we thought about at the beginning of the session, and think about how can you learn from that so you can now become a better human because of the loss. You can learn through winning and losing. There's a book called it says you either win or you learn. They don't even say loss. They don't even say failure because it's a learning opportunity every single time. So go find the things that you can learn from this loss or failure. Go find the things that are going to set your heart on fire through that loss that are going to make you a better human being because of it. With that, I'm going to leave you with this. When you lose or when you fail, you need to do 4 things. 4 things. Okay, write this down if you have a notebook and you want to learn about this. 1, you got to acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge it as a failure. If you are talking about like some sort of failure that you had and you were just like, oh, it's not a failure, like it was still a win, you're not acknowledging the fact that it was a failure in some way. It probably was. If it's a question, you probably failed in some sort of way. You may have to look for it. So acknowledge it. Now, the second thing you need to do is you need to own that failure. You need to own the fact that you failed, okay? Because if we're in denial about it, we're not going to learn from it. So you don't have to go deny it to your neighbor or your teammate. You don't have to deny it. Like if your teammate was with you when you failed, they know it. But if you're trying to avoid it or not talk about it, you're not helping yourself. So if somebody asks you if you struck out or if things didn't go well, like own the fact that you failed. And that's number 2. Own the fact that you failed, okay? It's hard to do sometimes, but it's the key to succeeding. So own the fact that you failed. 3, from that situation where you failed or you lost, write down all the things that you could have done better. This is something that I learned last week when I was doing the Mamba Mentality Live from Kobe himself. He said he would write down all the things that he failed at. Like sometimes he had like a full page of things that he sucked at in a single game. But the thing is, he now has all of the things that he can get better so that the next game is better than the last. I hope this resonates with you. So if you failed or you lost recently, write down the things that you could have done better in that game. Now your job is to not just go try to fix all the things. Like if you had a ball go through your legs, if you made a super bad mental mistake on the field and it cost your team the game, if you dropped a fly ball on defense, if you struck out on a specific pitch, if these are all things that happened in a specific game, don't try to go fix all those things at once. You need to go fix one thing at a time, okay? Pick one thing and then go master that thing, okay? So if it's the fact that, every single time you do a backhand, you struggle with it, that's probably the thing you should go do right now. If you struggle with the backhand and that's something that's always on your list, you need to go make sure you go master the backhand, because you're not going to let that backhand eat you up anymore. You're going to go master it. You're going to go fix it. So acknowledge it and acknowledge the failure. Own the failure. Own the fact that you missed that backhand. Okay, sister, it happens. Own it. Write down what you could have done better. So we talked about how you can write down all the things that you could have done better. Definitely write down all the things, but then pick one thing that you're going to do better. And if it's the common denominator, if it's the one that's always on the list of things that you really stunk at, maybe it's hitting the rise ball, maybe it's hitting the changeup, I don't know. If it's one that sticks out to you like a sore thumb, you better believe that's the one that you're going to go and accomplish, okay? And not just accomplish, you're going to master it, okay? And you got to go at this thing. Like if you hate the changeup and you struggle with the changeup all the time, you got to walk up to that changeup or walk into scenarios where you're seeing changeups all the time, okay? So if you have a specific coach that only throws you front toss and never throws changeups, you're not helping your cause. So walk up to changeup drills. Walk up to changeup like pitching machines that for the balls coming in super late. Do timing drills. Do things to master the changeup so that you can go and crush that changeup and then move on to the next thing on your list that you struggle with. Okay? Master one thing. And the very last thing I wrote down, after you acknowledge it, own it, write down what you could have done better, and pick one thing out of those to go master. Work to never repeat that same thing again. So work to learn from the failure and make sure that thing never, ever, ever happens again. Troy Parker said, then go kick the ball and have a short memory. Oh, this is actually awesome. So I'm actually going to bring this up. So Maddie is one of my online trainings, and we were on a live Zoom call last night. And we were talking about strategies that we have to get rid of failure, get rid of mistakes. And one of the things that she does is she either physically kicks a ball, like she'll kick it or she'll kick dirt or she'll just kick it out of the way, so that's her way of saying, okay, the play is done. Like it's over. You need to have a short memory. And I'm glad he mentioned this too, because if you're trying to analyze all your failure in the middle of the game, you're hurting yourself with the rest of the game that you have to play. Okay? So make sure when you're doing this analysis of how to learn from failure, it's not in the middle of the game you're actually playing. Go play, go have fun, make the most of your opportunity, but you should be doing this stuff post-game. You should be doing this before your next game, okay? So, but this is a great point because Maddie likes to literally kick the negativity away, kick the bad away, kick whatever it was that didn't go well away, because you do want to have a short memory on the field. I mentioned this last night, but you don't want to linger in the things that aren't going well, because in our sport, it's different than volleyball or basketball. Volleyball or basketball, teams are running up and down the court. You're on offense and then you're on defense. It's literally happening within seconds. You don't have time to really sit and sulk and feel bad about yourself. But in softball, we do. We have a lot of time to think about how bad we are when we make a bad play. But the key is to have a short memory, just like Troy said. The key is to make sure that thing, we don't want it to happen again, but the thing is, we have to be able to throw that thing away until we analyze it later so that we can make the next play and want the ball for the next play. So if a ball goes through your legs, the worst thing we can do is sit and tell ourselves how bad we are at this game, because I've done it before and it gets you nowhere. But as soon as you can kick the memory away and you show up for the next ball and you say, you know what, I missed the ball, give me the next one. I'm going to make this next play. I'm going to make the next play. Repeat it to yourself if you have to. You're more likely going to make the next play when the ball comes to you. So have a short memory, but also take the time post-game to write down the things that didn't go well so you can learn from it. Travis Andrews, as soon as they introduced the round bat with the ball, they set us all up for failure. That's actually a really funny point, because think about it. in this game, we're failing far more than we're succeeding. So unlike other sports where you don't get to fail as much, think about it. You have more opportunities to learn because we get to fail more. So just because you're playing the sport of softball, congratulations. You signed up for a sport where you're going to fail often. But now, through this live, and hopefully you guys took some notes, you have the keys to be able to go succeed with the failure that is going to happen. It's inevitable. We all signed up for a sport that's hard. We all signed up for a sport where we fail. But it's your job to make sure you learn from that failure and that you become a better human because the failure happened to you. Okay, with that, you guys are incredible. I'm so happy you guys were here. If you liked it, please share with your friends. I would absolutely love that. If you're interested in online training, I'm letting you know about this now because starting March 1st, there's going to be a new level of online training that's going to be happening. So March 1st is the 1 year anniversary of me launching online training. And I'm super excited for more. Like, I'm going to be able to give you a better experience because of what I've learned in the past year. There's going to be so much more things offered to you. There's going to be more opportunities for you to work with me face to face. There's just a lot of things that I'm super excited to launch and show you guys. So if you're interested in online training, now is the time to sign up because now is the cheapest you're going to be able to sign up and use online training. With it, there's going to be more offered in the future. So with that, now's the time to sign up. I'm so excited for all the opportunities I'm going to be able to share with you within this next year. Thank you guys for being around. I think this is I've been doing these lives every Monday. I think there was one Monday I didn't show up, but every Monday for the past year. And I'm telling you right now, these lives are going nowhere because I love them so much. But with that, thanks for hanging out with me. Please share with your friends if you guys enjoyed this, because I truly believe this is stuff that if all athletes took this to heart, they'd become way better versions of themselves in this game. But with that, you guys are incredible. Karen, lastly, said, how much is online training? If you go to ashleybtraining.com, you can see the 2, 4, and the 6-pack of lessons that you can grab. But 2 lesson plans will include literally lesson plans with specific stuff on hitting, on how to become a better hitter in specific aspects of your game. You'll send me video. I'll be able to analyze the video, and we'll get on calls just like this and talk about mental game. But with that, I believe the 2-pack itself is $87. So think about like an actual in-person lesson. It's actually cheaper to do the online version, but $87 for the 2-pack because in between our video calls with me. The 4-pack is, I believe, $187, and then the 6-pack, which is the most popular because it's the best deal, I just showed you 7, this is 6, is $227. So with that, ashleybtraining.com can show you all the things, but I'm super stoked for people that are going to join. If you have more questions, Karen, please reach out to me in a DM. I will gladly answer any other questions that you guys have. But y'all are awesome, and I hope you crush this week, and I can't wait to see you next week. With that, take care. Great to see you guys. See you later.